Hi guys, it's Lorelai or Maddie, and I'm back today with chapter 3 of hashtag Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. Let's get right into it. San Francisco sunshine was underwhelming, though the sky was vivid blue, dotted with puffy wisps of clouds that stretched like chubby fingers from the west. The sun gave off zero warmth, and Dee's skin prickled beneath the thin fabric of her Cinderella gown. It was the total opposite of November in Los Angeles, where it was probably 75 and sunny. And Dee's crappy costume would have been adequate protection from the elements. Did I seriously just compare the benefits of a Penal Colonial versus my hometown in terms of a princess costume? As if this day couldn't get weirder. Except it had. Though Dee had watched the endless live stream from her holding cell, she hadn't fully appreciated the creepiness of Alcatraz 2.0 until she stepped outside the warehouse. The prison had been established on a man-made island in the middle of San Francisco Bay, connected to a natural outcropping of rock that had served as the midway point for the Old Bay Bridge, once known as Treasure Island. It had been built for a World's Fair almost a century earlier. When transformed first into a military installation, and then into a series of Hollywood sound stages before finally being redeveloped for housing. But once the tunnel was built to connect San Francisco to the East Bay, and the bridge bay was demolished, the island had been abandoned. Until the postman purchased it. The heavy creep factor came from the island's infrastructure, which had been retained when it was transformed into a prison. Duplexes, storefronts, library, warehouses, all the remnants of its former glory had been shined up and repurposed. Now convicted murderers like Dee worked pedestrian jobs, lived in traditional homes, and did everyday crap like cooking meals, navigating neighbors, and trying to stay alive as long as possible before they were ambushed, kidnapped, and brutally executed while the entire world watched. It was fucking surreal. Niles had fallen quiet. He seemed edgy since they stepped outside the decrepit warehouse, moving quickly down the wide, deserted street as his eyes continually darted from side to side. This part of the island was packed with enormous structures of corrugated metal and waterlogged wood, mostly ruined. Some were missing roofs. Others had entire chunks of siding stripped away. Even the air smelled musty and rotten. And though the neighborhood looked vaguely familiar as Dee hurried to keep up with Niall's long strides, she noticed that there were no cameras around. Based on what she'd seen of the Postman app, she had half expected there to be cameras everywhere, attached to fences, mounted on street lamps, lining the tops of buildings. Instead, the only ornaments in this dilapidated industrial wasteland were the dozens of black crows perched atop the warehouse roofs, stoic and unmoving. Niall sped onward past an abandoned gas station with a hand-painted sign on one boarded-up window reading, "Don't feed the birds." So there were rules on Alcatraz 2.0 after all. Good to know. "I'll introduce you to your job first," Niall said, breaking the silence as they rounded a corner onto Main Street. A row of brightly painted shops stretched down both sides, so you can meet your coworkers. Dee cringed. Coworkers? Translation: the convicted killers I'll have to hang out with every day. Everyone has a job on Alcatraz, Niall said. He cast a shy glance at her. Even a princess. Haha, Dee replied without an ounce of humor in her voice. Oh, sorry. Ha ha, Dee replied without an ounce of humor in her voice. It won't be anything complicated, I can assure you, he said cheerfully, as if he were going to give her the rundown on her new after-school job at the mall. Normal hours, 10 to 5 and all that. Nothing about this place was normal. And if I don't show up? That's your choice, Niall shrugged. But no work means no money on your island debit card, which means you can't buy food. Good reason to show up. Niall smiled. Isn't it? He shot another calcine look at her, eyes sweeping down from her sparkly headband to her dress. And just for a second, the happy-go-lucky facade slipped away, revealing a significantly more somber expression. Then he turned, and it was gone. Anyway, he continued, his tone light and airy, we'll have to get to the barracks before dark. We do not want to be out after the sun goes down. That's usually when the Paniacs... He paused, musing over the word, then shook his head. That's usually when the killers strike. Unless it's a foggy day, or rainy, or an eclipse, I suppose. He stopped and faced her. Basically, only be outside with the sun. Noted. Niles pointed to the quaint structure across the street that looked like a converted cottage. So we've got the stationery store there, library next door. Further down, there's the Bogueda. That's where you'll buy groceries and whatnot. The hair salon and the gym. So I can look good and get in shape for my murderer? Niall smiled, his blue eyes bright with amusement. Quite, he said. His gaze shifted to a spot above Dee's head. Here we are, then. He stood in front of an old-timey ice cream parlor, completed with pink-striped awning and hand-painted lettering on the window. Ice cream? Dee said, reading the name of the shop. You've got to be kidding me. You'll find an abundance of dark humor on the island. Niles pushed open the glass door. Above, a silver bell tinkled an announcement of their arrival. Dee followed him inside and felt as if she had stepped back in time. The black and white checkered floor was dotted with ornate wrought iron tables, painted white, with matching chairs. The walls, like the awning outside, were bubblegum pink and crammed with sepia-toned photographs of ice cream parlors from ages past. Pink stools lined the front of a counter that held jars of neon candy, lollipops, and jelly beans, plus a refrigerated display of ice cream flavors. It was neat and cheerful, and totally fucked up. Because, just like in Slayer's Maze, Dee quickly noted the cameras affixed to the ceiling in each corner of the shop, rounded black mounds surveying the entire room. A chill ran down her spine. 4 red lights, 1 in each camera dome, were all pointed directly at her. "I'm back," Niles called out to no one in particular. A door on the far wall, camouflaged by the pink tile wallpaper, swung open, and an attractive, heavily made up girl appeared in the doorway. Dee recognized her immediately. Griselda Sinclair. Griselda had a huge fan base, and every time the feed switched to her apartment or to a shot of her working out in the gym, the fans' comments that ran up the side of the screen would explode. She even had her own hashtags. Hashtag conjugal visits for Gruelza and hashtag Gruzelza, I want you in my pants. Because the fans were super classy like that. But Gruzelza seemed happy to play the role of Alcatraz 2.0 hottie. She wore a plaid miniskirt paired with combat boots that laced to the knee, plus an off-the-shoulder midriff shirt that exposed a black lace bra strapped on her right shoulder. And her long dishwater blonde hair had been flat ironed stick straight. She paused in the doorway while she smoothed down her hair and tucked it behind both ears. Then she pulled on the right sleeve of her shirt, shifting it so far off her shoulder that it practically exposed side boob, ran her tongue over her teeth to check for stray lipstick, and stepped into the shop. It was like watching an actress backstage before she made her entrance, and as Dee saw the red dots of the camera swivel in Griselda's direction, she realized that was exactly what she had witnessed. "You're the only person on this island stupid enough to be wandering around the warehouse district this close to nightfall," Griselda said. "It's touching to know you care, Grizz." Niles tossed a white plastic card onto the counter, then reached into a large glass jar and snagged a piece of red licorice. She picked up the card and swiped it through some kind of electronic reader, then slid it back to Niles. "I see you've brought the newbie." "Ah, yes." Niles bowed low with a flourish of his licorice. Griselda Sinclair. May I present your new co-worker, Dee Guerrera. Hey, Dee stuttered, trying to sound casual. She didn't want any of these people to see her fear. But Griselda made no attempt at friendliness. She folded her arms across her chest and examined Dee from head to toe. So we're stuck with Cinderella Survivor, huh? Who? Dee asked. Niall's eyes grew wide with excitement. Is that what they're calling her? Griselda nodded towards the front of the shop. See for yourself. Mounted on the wall above the door was a large flat monitor. One half of the screen showed several small boxes rotating slowly through a variety of camera feeds. The other half showed strangely familiar night vision footage of a girl in a long dress holding a mirror. In the upper right hand corner of the screen, she saw a symbol that she immediately recognized. PEI in red block letters. The bottom of the P extending into the spine of the E and the tail of the I. The logo for Postman Enterprises, Inc. It took Dee several seconds to realize that she was watching a replay of her first moments in Slayer's Maids. Beside the video, the comments feed scrolled at a neck break pace, but even at that speed, Dee caught the same hashtag used over and over again. #Cinderella Survivor. Our little princess has 20 million spikes, Griselda said flatly. Niles whistled low as if impressed, but Dee was pretty sure it wasn't a good thing. What does that mean? Griselda smiled sweetly, exposing a perfect dimple on her right cheek. It means, princess, that you won't last a week. And that's the end of this chapter. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.